Hi everyone, welcome back to Dento'ZEN. Today we are here with new video where we are going to continue our important topic of dental histology, that is tooth development. We have already covered this topic in previous videos where we have discussed the basics of the tooth development, the names of the different morphological stages of tooth development. Then we have also discussed each stage, that is bud stage, cap stage and bell stage in detail. The links for all these videos can be found in the description box below. In the last video on bell stage we discussed that two important events takes place, that is hard tissue formation and root formation in the bell stage. So in today's video we are going to discuss the second event, that is root formation, which occurs in the late or the advanced bell stage. In this stage the enamel organ looks like a bell, and that is why it is called as bell stage. Now it is the enamel organ only which is now going to help us in the formation of root. The extended part of this enamel organ, which extends from enamel organ, if we imagine it in 3 dimension, it will look like this. अगर हम enamel organ को नीचे से देखें, this bell shaped enamel organ, there is a layer which extends from this bell shaped enamel organ from downwards, and this layer is known as Hertwig's epithelial root sheath. Hertwig's epithelial because it is formed from the epithelial cells of the enamel organ, root because it is going to help us in the formation of root, and sheath because it is like a layer. So this Hertwig's epithelial root sheath, which is also known as HERS, is very important structure for root formation. It helps us in determining the number of roots, the size of the roots as well as shape of roots. तो ये बताएगा कितनी roots बनेंगी, उनका size क्या होगा और उनका shape क्या होगा. So in this video we are going to learn how HERS is going to help us in root formation. So before we begin, I want you to quickly subscribe to Dento'ZEN if you have not done that till now. Also hit on the bell icon so that you remain notified about new videos. Now root formation takes place in late or advanced bell stage. So let's first understand the parts of a tooth. This is the crown part of the tooth and this one is the root part of the tooth. So if we look at the structure, so the crown is formed of pulp in the center surrounded by dentine, and the outermost part is known as enamel, whereas in root the innermost part is the pulp canals surrounded by radicular dentine, which is the root dentine, and the outermost layer in the root is cementum. So we can see that pulp and dentine are present in both crown as well as in root, but it is only the outermost layer which is different. So the outermost layer is enamel in crown and cementum is root, and the junction between these two, that is enamel and cementum, is known as cemento-enamel junction. Now this junction is very important because root formation is going to begin in the advanced bell stage only when the crown formation is complete. So when enamel and dentine have formed till the cervical part, till the future cemento-enamel junction, then only the root formation will begin. So let's see the advanced bell stage. So in the advanced bell stage we have enamel organ which looks like this. So this enamel organ has different layers inside it, that is outer enamel epithelium, then we have stellate reticulum, we have stratum intermedium, and we have inner enamel epithelium. These inner enamel epithelial cells will differentiate into tall columnar cells, that is ameloblast cells, which will then lay down enamel as we can see here. So this blue colored structure, blue colored layer is the layer of enamel, and the cells of dental papilla which are in the center will differentiate into odontoblast cells like this as we can see here, and they will give rise to dentine. This pink colored layer that we can see here is dentine. So these two hard tissues, that is enamel and dentine, their formation begins at the cusp tip like here, and it proceeds in two directions. That is, enamel formation will go towards the outer surface and dentine formation will proceed towards the pulpal surface. And the second direction is that both will also grow from the cusp tip towards the cervical region like this. So we can say that hard tissue formation occurs in two directions. That is, it starts from future dentino-enamel junction. Enamel will proceed from this towards the outer surface, whereas dentine will proceed from here towards the inner surface, that is towards the pulp. And also both tissues will grow from the cusp tip towards the cervical direction as you can see here. So this is the two directions of the hard tissue formation. Now, once they reach the cemento-enamel junction here, future cemento-enamel junction, then the root formation will start. Now, root formation will be helped by enamel organ. So, the layer of the enamel organ which helps in root formation is known as Hertwig's epithelial root sheath. Now, this is a bi-layered structure made up of two layers, that is inner enamel epithelium and outer enamel epithelium. So, it will not contain stellate reticulum and stratum intermedium of enamel organ. That is very very important वाइवा क्वेश्चन कि ये कौन सी दो लेयर से बना है. सो इट इज़ मेड अप ऑफ आउटर इनामल एपिथेलियम एंड इनर इनामल एपिथेलियम एंड इट इसमें एब्सेंट कौन सी लेयर्स हैं, स्टीलेट रेटिकुलम एंड स्ट्रेटम इंटरमीडियम. नाउ इफ वी लुक एट द सेल्स ऑफ दिस लेयर, द इनर इनामल एपिथेलियम इज मेड अप ऑफ शॉर्ट सेल्स. यहाँ पे ये सेल्स शॉर्ट रहते हैं, जबकि पहले ये कॉलमनार शेप के सेल्स थे, बट हियर दे रिमेन शॉर्ट एंड दे डू नॉट फॉर्म इनामल, whereas the cells of outer enamel epithelium are cuboidal shaped cells. Now this layer HERS, it separates the dental papilla. इसके अंदर की साइड पे dental papilla है जो कि बाद में pulp बनने वाला है, and on the outer side it has dental sac cells. So we have dental papilla here and dental sac here. So now this Hertwig's epithelial root sheath will give signal to the radicular dental papilla cells that is present near the root portion, and these radicular dental papilla cells will then transform into odontoblast cell. They will differentiate and they will form odontoblast, and these odontoblast cells will then lay down dentin here. यहाँ पे ये डेंटिन बना देंगे. सो दीज ओडोंटोब्लास्ट सेल्स will form radicular dentin, that is dentin in the root portion. So before all this happens, this Hertwig's epithelial root sheath will bend in a horizontal direction. There will be a horizontal bend, as we can see here that this HERS bends in the horizontal direction, and this horizontal bend is known as an important structure, that is epithelial diaphragm. So this epithelial diaphragm, its plane remains fixed, that is it's not going to move, and it narrows the wide cervical opening into a small opening. Now let's quickly see the steps of root formation. So in the first step, the HERS will form epithelial diaphragm, which is a horizontal bend, as we can see here. It will narrow the cervical opening which was wide. Now it becomes a narrow opening. After that, this epithelial diaphragm will proliferate, as the cells have to proliferate. So where this epithelial diaphragm will proliferate, it will proliferate here. How? अगर यहाँ पे proliferate करना है तो इसको तो ऐसी डायरेक्शन में बढ़ना पड़ेगा. So this epithelial diaphragm will proliferate once the entire enamel organ moves in the upward direction. ये पूरा का पूरा enamel organ तो जब ऊपर की तरफ move करता है, and then this HERS will proliferate here. So this HERS will not proliferate at the free end but at the coronal end of the diaphragm. यहाँ पे ये proliferate करेगा, and as it will proliferate, it will lead to the differentiation of the cells of dental papilla into odontoblast cells, as we can see here, and these odontoblast cells will lay down dentin here. So odontoblast differentiation and dentin formation will happen along with the lengthening of HERS. जैसे जैसे हमारी HERS लंबी होती जाएगी, हमारा dentin formation भी होता जाएगा. So we can say radicular dental papilla cells will differentiate into odontoblast cells and they will form radicular dentin. And also the cells of the dental sac which are present outside, यहाँ पे हमारा dental papilla है, the dental sac which is present on the outside, these cells will also proliferate. They will also proliferate, increase in number, and now they will invade into this HERS, Hertwig's epithelial root sheath के अंदर घुस जाएंगे and will break it down. So HERS will now break down, and we can see that there will be space like this because HERS epithelial cells will break down, and these HERS cells will move away from the dentin surface. Dentin surface से थोड़ा पीछे हो जाएंगे, and they will remain there as cell rest. ऐसे अलग से cells का cluster, discrete cell cluster will remain there, which is bound by a basement membrane. So ये basement membrane से surrounded रहता है, and it is separated from the cells of the dental sac. Now these proliferating dental sac cells, they will come into contact with dentin. now जब यहाँ पे जगह मिल गई तो ये dentin के contact में आ जाएंगे. अब उसके बाद further क्या होगा, let's see. So we have seen that once the dentin formation has occurred, यहाँ पे ये dentin formation हो गया. Now the HERS will break down. ये break down हो गया यहाँ पे. Now these dental sac cells have come into contact with dentin. Now these dental sac cells, once they reach here, they will differentiate into cementoblasts. इसके कॉन्टैक्ट में आके ये सीमेंटोब्लास्ट सेल्स में डिफ्रेंशिएट हो जाएंगे एंड दे विल ले डाउन सीमेंटम देयर. सो अ सीमेंट लेयर ऑफ सीमेंटम इज डिपॉजिटेड ओवर अ लेयर ऑफ डेंटिन. सो dental sac cells differentiated into cementoblasts and they will form cementum. Also, the dental sac cells will differentiate into fibroblast cells. These fibroblast cells will form periodontal ligament and the fibers of the periodontal ligament. And also, these dental sac cells will differentiate into osteoblast cells. These osteoblast cells will lay down bone here. So alveolar bone will also form. So we can see here that three tissues will form from the dental sac, that is this yellow colored cementum, this red periodontal ligament, and this pink alveolar bone. And the fibers of the periodontal ligament will get embedded in bone on the one side and in the cementum on the other side. So HERS breaks down dental sac, differentiates into cementoblast, fibroblast and osteoblast and will form cementum, periodontal ligament and alveolar bone. So towards the end of the root formation, the proliferation of epithelial cells will lag behind the proliferation of connective tissue. That means connective tissue cells abhi proliferate कर रहे होंगे, but epithelial proliferation will stop. And then with the formation of dentin here, and dentin will form, followed by the cementum, so this opening, this diaphragmatic opening will narrow down further. ये opening जो इतनी बड़ी थी ये और छोटी हो जाएगी and finally it will form apical foramen. So that is how root formation happens. But let's see how it happens in multiple roots. So in case of multiple roots, we will have to imagine the end of Hertwig's epithelial root sheath in 3 dimension. So it is somewhat like this, as we can see here. So it is hanging from the, so we have to imagine it like as if the structure HERS is hanging from the enamel organ, from the bell shaped enamel organ like this, like a skirt. So it is hanging like a skirt like this, and it has a horizontal projection, that is horizontal bend, that is epithelial diaphragm. And within the epithelial diaphragm, the dental papilla cells differentiate to form odontoblast cells, and these odontoblast cells then lay down dentin here like this. So this entire structure is like this. So it is like a skirt hanging from the enamel organ. So when it has to form multiple roots, so when the multiple root formation has to take place, this epithelial diaphragm will show differential growth. That means in certain parts of this epithelial diaphragm, the cells will divide more rapidly and will form tongue-shaped processes like this. So if we see it from the below, we can see two tongue-shaped processes from the extending from the epithelial diaphragm, and these tongue-shaped processes will then fuse in the center like this, as we can see here, and then this one opening is now divided into two openings, as we can see here. So one opening is now divided into two openings, and within each opening dental papilla cells will proliferate and will form and will differentiate to form odontoblast, and then they will form dentin here. So here we can see two roots forming like this, if we can imagine, so within this skirt like structure. So that is how two roots will form. So if we look at it under the microscope, we can see it as a 2D structure. So where we can see this part and this part. So we can see HERS here, here and here. And we can see dentin formation happening like this in the two regions. And we have the formation of two roots with two openings. So if it has to form three roots, like in case of maxillary molars, so there will be three processes that will extend from the epithelial diaphragm. So that is how multiple root formation occurs. So in the multiple root formation, there is differential growth of the epithelial diaphragm, which will lead to formation of the processes which are also called tongues. So tongues or processes will fuse in the center and there will be formation of two roots. So if we require multiple roots, so number of processes will increase. So here we can see as this will divide further, so in histology we can see that there will be dentine formation in the two different areas and there will be formation of two openings. So if we require three roots, there will be three processes as we can see here. So this happens in case of maxillary molars where we require three roots, and two roots are found in the case of mandibular molars. So the number of processes are equal to the number of roots. जितनी roots चाहिए उतनी ही processes बनेगी. Now this is how normal root formation takes place, that is single rooted teeth and multiple root formation. But can something go wrong with HERS? Yes, sometimes there can be problems. So what problems can be there? So if HERS remains adherent to the dentine, that means dentine has formed, dentine बन गया है और HERS टूटा नहीं, it will not break down, it remains adherent, अभी भी चिपका रहता है डेंटिन से. So what will happen? So the signal will come to HERS and its cells will now transform into fully functional ameloblasts, and these cells will lay down enamel. Ameloblast जैसे वहाँ पे enamel बनाते थे, यहाँ पे भी radicular dentin पे they will form enamel. So in that case, if HERS remains adherent to dentine and it does not break down, it does not disintegrate, then it will lead to formation of enamel over the root dentine, and which clinically अगर हम टूथ को देखेंगे तो रूट पोर्शन में हमें ये इनामल बना हुआ ऐसे दिखेगा, which is usually seen in the forcation areas, that is where the roots divide. There we can see this enamel like this, and this is known as enamel pearl. इनामल का मोती जैसा बना हुआ दिखेगा, which is known as enamel pearl. Sometimes HERS will break down early. That means dentin बना नहीं, उससे पहले ही it breaks down. In such a case, what will happen? There will be no formation of hard tissue there because HERS is not there. So there will be no differentiation of odontoblast and there will be no formation of dentine and cementum. So in that case, there will be a connection between the dental pulp and the periodontal ligament, the erupted tooth. So clinically, it will be seen like this. So in this case, we will have an extra connection, that is in addition to the main canal, we will have an extra canal like this as we can see here, and this extra canal is known as the accessory canal. Accessory canal. So accessory canal formation can occur if HERS breaks down before its normal time. So those two things can happen. Now let's do a quick summary of the root formation. That is, HERS, Hertwig's epithelial root sheath, is the main structure which helps in the root formation. First, there is a horizontal band of this structure which is known as epithelial diaphragm. Then the proliferation of epithelial diaphragm takes place at the coronal end, and it will then lead to the proliferation of the dental papilla cells, which will then differentiate into odontoblast cells as we can see here. These odontoblast cells will then lay down radicular dentin. So as the radicular dentin forms, the HERS will break down by the invasion of dental sac cells, and these dental sac cells will then will differentiate into cementoblast, fibroblast and osteoblast, and will thus lay down cementum, periodontal ligament and alveolar bone. So all these structures will form by the dental sac, that is cementum, periodontal ligament and alveolar bone. In case of multiple roots, then there is differential growth of epithelial diaphragm. It will form tongue-shaped processes which will fuse, and the number of these processes will be equal to the number of roots required. So the remnants of Hertwig's epithelial root sheath which we discussed earlier, which remained here, which got detached, जिनको तोड़ दिया था डेंटल सैक के सेल्स ने इन्वेड करके, these remnants will remain in the periodontal ligament in the erupted teeth in the adults, and these remnants are known as cell rests of Malassez. That can be your very important question. Cell rest of Malassez These are remnants of HERS. Now don't confuse it with other cell rests which are known as cell rests of Serre. Here, as we can see, these are the remnants of dental lamina and they are found in gingiva and jaws, whereas cell rest of MALASEEZ are remnants of HERS. So that is all for the root formation. So we come to the end of the tooth development, that is bud shape enamel organ changes to cap stage and then to bell stage, and in the bell stage we have hard tissue formation and root formation. So if your long question comes on the bell stage, then you have to describe the entire process. If it is just on the advanced bell stage, then you have to talk about the two events, that is hard tissue formation and root formation. But if your long question is only on the root formation, then you have to just describe the formation of single rooted tooth and multi-rooted teeth. So that is all for this video. Let's quickly check what have you learned from this video. So name the structure that helps in root formation. What is HERS? HERS क्या है? Which two layers of enamel organ will form HERS? में दो layers कौन सी आएंगी? What are the remnants of HERS known as? HERS के बचे हुए parts को हम क्या बोलते हैं? Cell rests को क्या बोलते हैं? Where are these remnants located? ये कहाँ पे पड़े होते हैं remnants? Adult teeth में हमें कहाँ दिखते हैं? Parts of the tooth that form from dental sac. Dental sac से कौन कौन से parts बनेंगे tooth के और supporting structures. So if you really like the video, if you have understood the root formation, tap on the like button. Also share the link of this video with your friends and hit on the bell icon so that you remain notified about new videos. Keep reading, keep studying. Good luck for your exams. See you in the next video. Till then, take care. Bye bye.